Money, money, money. Can't do without it, can we? For most, it's hard work. Disturbing the peace of the Bank of England, no less. Nerve centre of our banking system. A good place for us to start, don't you think? Oh, my name's Dodds. I'm a banker. I manage a suburban branch of one of the high street banks. I'll take you there presently, let you meet some of my customers.
Yes, hard work. Still, most of us seem to get by.
They're all right, aren't they?
Administration. The cheque made out by Nigel Skeggs on his bank, the NatWest in Scunthorpe, is paid by Marine Products into their bank, the Midland in Penzance, where the sum is credited to their account. Every cheque has an identification code for computer recognition. The amount of the cheque is now added to the code. That night, the cheque with others goes from Penzance to here, Midland Clearing Department, London, where cheques from all the other Midland branches up and down the country come for sorting. Next morning, a special van takes Nigel Skeggs' cheque, with thousands of others, to the Bankers' Clearing House, where banks exchange cheques with one another. Then it goes in another van to NatWest Clearing in London, where a reader sorter, using the identification code, sorts it into a pocket with all the other NatWest Scunthorpe branch cheques. That night, these are all sent to Scunthorpe by road, where next day the cheques are examined to make sure that they've been correctly made out and that the signature is authentic. On this, the third day, the amount is deducted from Nigel Skeggs' account at NatWest Scunthorpe, and the payment to Marine Products account at Midland Penzance is cleared. Each customer's statement shows this transaction, but in both instances the account is held on magnetic discs at each bank's computer centre. The actual settlement between the two banks, NatWest and Midland, takes place here at the Bankers' Clearing House.
Good afternoon, thank you. A debit for £162,326,049.38.
Millions of transactions between all the banks are totalled up and balanced against one another. The net settlements are presented to the representative of the Bank of England, which, as banker to all the banks, debits or credits their accounts. Up to £20,000 million will pass through the Bankers' Clearing House in a single day. So, though the individual cheque is very convenient, it still involves the handling and moving of an enormous mass of paper around the country. This bank has to process over 2 million cheques a day, and that number is expected to double in the next decade. Yet, the end result of all this activity is simply to bring up to date the accounts which are held on magnetic discs. And to print out tens of thousands of statements for the bank's customers. A key target for the planners in all banks is to cut down on paperwork and increasingly to move to the electronic transmission of money.
Already signs of the new technology are appearing in ordinary, everyday banking. This machine can not only pay out cash to cardholders, it's also connected to the central computer. It can check if you have funds available, or it can give you the current balance of your account.
There is also a communications facility through which you can order a statement or a new checkbook. Such technology has a logical development. Why pay for goods with cash?
Can I help you, sir?
Yes, I'd like to buy this table, please.
No need always to have the cash available in case you happen to see something you feel you must buy. Here, this cheque is guaranteed by a cheque card. But almost as convenient and widely available today is the credit card. Up to an agreed sum, any number of purchases can be made and paid for by a single cheque. A detailed account is sent monthly to all customers from the card company's headquarters. As an alternative, payments can be spread over several months. An equally important system, BACS, the Bankers Automated Clearing Service, is designed exclusively for major corporate customers like Shell, British Leyland and others. The Prudential Assurance Company, for example, will deliver a few tapes on which are recorded a large number of transactions. The delivery is electronically recorded. The tapes are copied for extra security. Massive systems like that operated by BACS are essential to keep the country's economy working. But for most people, staff and customers, banking is a much more human, small-scale operation. This is my bank, and here's how we start the day before the doors are open for us to greet our first customers.
Right. Now, shall we go through the list of out-of-order accounts, please?
Yes, I have marked those, which I think we should look at.
In my branch, we keep the cashier's tills overnight in the strong room. So one of the first jobs is for the messengers to take them to the main counter. There, the chief cashier gives out the money required for the day by the other cashiers. By opening time, staff have already been busy for half an hour at least. But now, their day really begins.
Good morning, Doris.
Good morning, Mrs. March.
Not much of a one, I'm afraid.
No, it isn't, is it? How would you like the money?
14 fives and dressed in ones, please.
Right, I want £10 worth of bronze and £50 worth of large silver, please.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah, and I need a new paying in bill, please.
Yes, won't keep you a moment.
Right,
If I open a deposit account, how much interest would I get?
It varies. Today it's
The most obvious thing about a bank is the paying in and drawing out of money. But this is only one function. Equally important is looking after money, if you're lucky enough to have some to spare, in a deposit account.
Thanks.
Bank managers are by far the most available and widely used financial advisors. They're consulted about all kinds of financial affairs, and their advice will always be impartial, not just put it on deposit.
Well, Edie and I'll spend a lot of the legacy going to see Charlie in Toronto. You see, it's the only nest egg I've ever had, so I don't want to see it frittered away by inflation or bad investments.
Good morning. I'm Miss Clark. I have an appointment with Mr. Dodds.
Will you take a seat, please, and I'll tell him you're here.
Another important function of banks is to tide you over if you're a bit short. An overdraft of £500.
Yes. You see, I start a new job at the beginning of November, and I'm going to be paid monthly now, so I'll need it for a maximum of 6 months.
Do you have any security, a life policy or some national savings certificates?
Yes, they're in my deed box.
Customers can have their own locked deed boxes,
Number 433.
or just a sealed envelope. The bank has no wish to know the contents.
Here you are, Miss Clark.
Thank you.
Good morning, Miss Gibson.
The bank's service of supplying travellers' cheques and foreign currency is the very small tip of a very large iceberg. These men and women are doing one of the most exhausting jobs in the banking system. Britain buys and sells more goods and services per head than any other country in the world. And London is still a great international finance centre.
27, 25, 30, 55, 60, 60, 55.
Dealing in foreign currencies and oiling the financial wheels of international trade is therefore a vital service to the economy and also an important earner of foreign exchange. It's a highly competitive business in which decisions, often involving millions of pounds, have to be made in seconds. The dealer for any bank knows that when he's talking to big customers, they will be in simultaneous contact with 2 or 3 of his rivals. If his price is a shade high, the deal will go to a competitor. A shade low, and his employer will lose money. In the areas around Lombard Street in the City of London, about 30% of the world's international business transactions are settled. In this room, a Japanese clothing manufacturer may settle his bill for wool from an Australian farmer. Like most jobs, in a bank you start at the bottom, but the top is wide open. If you get to be a bank manager, you become a guide, confidant and friend to all your customers. But the bank has all kinds of specialized services to back you up.
Let's see, Mrs. Morgan. I think we might be able to.
The trust department, for example. The trust officer's job is very personal. He may well have assisted in drawing up the will years ago. Now, he'll help the family cope with all the problems which inevitably follow a bereavement.
John, can we just have a quick look at the will and
Yes,
see exactly what the problem is?
The bank is there to advise on every kind of problem and help customers to cope with any aspect of financial affairs. If it cannot advise directly, it will always know who can.
Shortly before his death. As you can see, there are fairly straightforward problems here that we can sort out without too much difficulty for you.
With the best possible organisation, all branches will still have peak periods when there are queues and the staff are under considerable strain. Remember, the cashier's till must balance to a penny at the end of the day, and yet she may handle thousands of pounds across the counter. A lot of customers like to be met by a cheery smile. But for those who are in a hurry, mechanisation is taking over, even at cashier level.
Can I help you?
Yes, can I go to my loan account, please?
Certainly.
Most branches have one or more terminals with instant communication to the bank's central computer for inquiries.
Here you are, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Away from the public, in the machine room, there is equipment which can list, add and encode all checks paid into the branch. One important result of automation is that by removing or simplifying much routine work, it gives staff more time to deal with customers.
On the face of it, it sounds like a very good proposition, though I think we'll be able to discuss it better when we've seen the location.
A branch manager will spend some 70% of his time dealing with people and their problems.
It's pretty much of a dead loss as it stands, but if you could give me a loan to renovate these buildings, I could put them to better use.
Actually, Mr. Hart, I don't think you need a loan. If you apply to the ministry, I'm almost certain you'll get an improvement grant.
Really? Well, that is worth knowing.
Banks are in business to make money. But in the long term, this involves their customers' prosperity. So advice is usually free and always helpful. A vitally important service the bank provides, not only to customers, but to the whole community, is money distribution. For example, Nigel Skeggs earns his money in Scunthorpe, but from a wide area. These end up at the depot as a single large sum which will go back to about the right place, in the right quantity, and at the right time. And not just for bank customers, but for everyone. When the bank closes to the public, the cashiers have to make sure that their tills exactly balance, and they must sort the worn-out notes to be returned to the Bank of England to be destroyed. The machine operators are still feeding data into the computer. The juniors still have hundreds of checks to sort. And the cash dispenser has to be loaded for the out-of-hours customer. The cashier's tills are returned and the strong room is locked for the night. The working day is over, and the branch is closed until tomorrow. But life goes on throughout the night. The use of money in all its forms, cash or cheque or credit card, continues.
Money, while the world's greatest banking centre, the City of London, prepares for another day. Money, money, money. Can't do without it, can we? For most, it's hard work. Disturbing the peace of the Bank of England, no less. Nerve centre of our banking system. A good place for us to start, don't you think? Oh, my name's Dodds. I'm a banker. I manage a suburban branch of one of the high street banks. I'll take you there presently, let you meet some of my customers.
Yes, hard work. Still, most of us seem to get by.
It's good, isn't it?
Very nice, I think.
They're all right, aren't they?
Administration. The cheque made out by Nigel Skeggs on his bank, the NatWest in Scunthorpe, is paid by Marine Products into their bank, the Midland in Penzance, where the sum is credited to their account. Clearing in London, where a reader sorter, using the identification code, sorts it into a pocket with all the other NatWest Scunthorpe branch cheques. That night, these are all sent to Scunthorpe by road, where next day the cheques are examined to make sure that they've been correctly made out and that the signature is authentic. On this, the third day, the amount is deducted from Nigel Skeggs' account at NatWest Scunthorpe and the payment... Every cheque has an identification code for computer recognition. The amount of the cheque is now added to the code. That night, the cheque with others goes from Penzance to here, Midland Clearing Department, London, where cheques from all the other Midland branches up and down the country come for sorting. Next morning, a special van takes Nigel Skeggs' cheque, with thousands of others, to the Bankers' Clearing House, where banks exchange cheques with one another. Then it goes in another van to NatWest Clearing.